Welcome. Welcome one, welcome everyone to being here. What we have for you, what we have prepared for you is the topic on widening the circles of concern, which was a report which was presented by the UUA Commission on Institutional Change. My name is Samuel Prince, and I am the chair of UUJO. We have Joan Van Biesler, in which most of you know. I don't know how, but most of you do know Joan. We also have Carl Wolberdorf. We have Linda Hill. We have Reverend Kelly Kiley. We also have Lori Albright. And I think that's who we have.
Mel.
And Mel, and coming in, but not coming up last. I was going to hold off for a surprise on that. We have Mel Hoover, all the way from West Virginia by means of Seattle right now. So Mel, welcome everyone, welcome you all being here.
Turning it off.
As we look at living our values in this world, a couple of housekeeping. As far as what we know on Zoom, if you're not speaking, it will be helpful if you can mute yourself, and that will be great for us so that the feedback is not there. So that would be appreciative. So again, I just want to say thank you, and thank you all for coming. So in a measure of our faith, I will be lighting a chalice. And the words in which I am using to light that chalice is the words by Reverend Dr. Sophia Badham-Court. And she says, and the words are, the good news is that we are in control of what we do with our daily living. If we, each one of us, represent a missing remnant of the fabric of our collective future, then together we can lean into a possibility that we have yet to fully experience in human history, a collective wholeness, an unassailable good. This is the kind of salvation I am here for, to fight for the small moments of every single day. Again, welcome. So just to give you a brief rundown as far as what is it that we have planned for you in the next hour and 20 minutes. Again, there's the welcome, there's the chalice Latin, there's the covenant, there's the intros. We're going to ask that each 23 of you, if you could just list your name, your congregation, maybe where you're from, maybe that will be helpful, okay? And then after you have done that, we will be moving into the book, which is Widening the Circles, which Reverend Kelly would be giving us kind of a preface of the book. Then we will be moving into Lori Albright, who will be telling us how the report was organized. Then from there, we have a two-part section there, which we go right into the book, Living Our Values in the World. If you do have the book, it's on page 67. And the first portion of that will be covered by Joan Van Biesler, Reverend Joan Van Biesler, who will be speaking about trends. And then we go into the 4 levels of oppression, which will be handled by Linda Hill and Carol Wilmerdorf. Then Mel Hoover and we will be having a kind of a discussion in which we will be including you, which will be focused on the movement towards equity, inclusion, and diversity. And again, it's because it's liberating, because it is a serious change which calls to elicit fear or discomfort, and in the meantime, It may also offer hope in our efforts, etc. And then we will be moving into our checking out. It's be a 1 or 2 word checkout, and there's some homework in which we will be having you do. If not, I could also help with that too. And then we will be having our closing quote by Linda Hill, and then we will extinguish our chalice, and we will see you next Wednesday night, same bad place, same bad time. All right. So as far as some agreements in which we have during the time in which we will be spending, we may be having discussions, and therefore, what does that mean? It may mean that we may be risking the vulnerability in which we have, and sometimes it calls for us to be courageous in our sharing. Now, what does that mean? It means that the intent of spiritual nourishment groups in which we have is to allow people to connect quickly, deeply for a one-time sharing. But what this means, it means that we hope that you will leave here feeling seen, heard, and witnessed by others. We also ask that you speak from your own experience. Use I statements, draw from the well of your own life, drawn from your own lived experience in which you have. Sharing air space, be mindful of staying within a lot of time as far as your response, although we don't have a lot of time kind of, but just be conscious of that when we are within that sharing period. Listen deeply to others. Stay tuned with that. And the next portion, it should have gone out there, to be intentional about the language in which I use. What does that mean? It means the fact that aim to use language in which is inclusive as possible, as much as you can, because some of us, we carry our identities, we carry our experiences with us. And last but not least is the one in which I really love: intent versus impact. The responsibility that we all have as far as the impact of our words, which it could have on another person. With that, now I will close this, not close the screen yet, but what we will do now, we will be opening up. We're going right into the book, and Reverend Kelly. I always love your name, Kelly. It says two names.
Softens up some of the most fierce receptionists and gatekeepers. That's what I discovered when I was in sales.
Yes.
Thank you for that,
Kelly.
Thank you for that introduction, Samuel.
Take it away, please. Thank you.
All righty. So the book, this text that we have in front of us, did not come about out of nowhere. Events occurred in 2017 that had not just occurred in 2017. Our denomination has really strived to be on the right side of history. And one of our strengths is that we keep on striving and we keep on trying. And this document covers a lot of really hard work of the commission itself, and also so many experiences of our religious professionals of color, our UUs of color, and of UUs that have been in other areas of oppression. They've experienced being on the edge of what we promise. And so the preface of this text talks about what immediately brought about the Commission on Institutional Change. There was a hiring controversy in 2017 that raised very publicly this question of how well does our hiring and how well do our hiring practices really show our values. And through this, a series of resignations occurred in the national office that brought about a really incredible opportunity for us. The board named 3 co-presidents who had incredible background and experience. And those are Reverend Bill Sinkford, Reverend Dr. Sophia Bentecourt, and Dr. Leon Spencer. They took this temporary time period to not only hold us in the anxiety, anger, grief, confusion, and they once again centered people of color within our denomination. And they had a gathering in Atlanta where they asked questions of what our UUs of color have experienced in our faith, what they are looking for, what they hope for and dream about. And out of that came a desire to have a true truth and reconciliation process. And they tasked the Committee on Institutional Change to begin that process. And that's one of the things that I think we at UUJO want to emphasize, that this book, this text, this report is a beginning. It does not resolve or fix everything. It is a beginning invitation for us to listen to stories that have not been heard, that have been disputed or minimized, and really allow it to transform all of us in love. So the preface is super short. They break it down. I personally do have ADHD. It's not a joke. So I appreciate how they break this down. They give us bullet points for what people raised as the current situation. They then give us bullet points on where we are 3 years later. And in those points 3 years later, they talk about the changes first. Then they talk about things that haven't changed, or if they have changed in a negative direction. One of the things that they've seen is that because we are so large, and because race has continued to be a difficult thing for us to talk about, we didn't know how many UUs of color we have in our congregations, or even in different positions of staff and ministry. Each region, each church, each district has different ways of handling hiring. So because we have tried to have this flat system, there has not been the level of consistency that we might need. We also heard back that there was very little support spiritually, emotionally, to do this type of work and just to really exist as UUs of color. So that is where we started. Now, 3 years later, we see that we are starting to name these things. And because we are naming them, we can measure some things. We can look at how many people are we hiring and what levels are they in. We can also create more resources, especially spiritually, for our UU siblings of color. What they ended with are some of the places that we are now that are still difficult. We have found that the more UU professionals of color speak out about their experience, the more difficulty they have in their positions. There are very often repercussions that, of course, are not directly labeled with a map and an arrow, but do seem fairly coincidental, too coincidental. And what we've also seen is that there is a backlash of white ministers and religious leaders who are speaking about their freedom of opinion as opposed to freedom to be held and to be part of this group and not to have experiences as debate material. They've also seen that white ministers and leaders who are speaking out and saying that these are changes that are necessary are also having repercussions to their employment. So once again, the preface is super short, and yet it is packed. And it emphasizes that this is the beginning of a process for us to learn how to be together and to learn how to be accountable to one another.